Welcome to Killer Confessions, where we delve into the darkest corners of human nature and the chilling words that bring murderers to justice. I'm your host, Mary Caddy. Tonight, we unravel a story of betrayal so profound, so monstrous, it's hard to truly comprehend. A story where the sacred bonds of childhood friendship twisted into a cold-blooded, meticulously planned plot for money, culminating in a brutal murder and a confession so shocking, so devoid of humanity. It was captured for the world to hear on a secret camera. This is the harrowing case of Sarah Stern, a young woman whose bright future, filled with artistic dreams and hopes of a new life, was brutally extinguished by those she had known, trusted, and perhaps even loved for most of her life. Our story begins in the early, frigid hours of December 3rd, 2016 on the Jersey Shore. This region, and known for its summer vibrancy, can feel stark and desolate in the grip of early winter. Specifically, we find ourselves in Neptune City, a borough in Monmouth County, New Jersey, often seen as a quiet residential area, a place where community ties are valued, nestled near more bustling shore towns. An Uber driver, navigating the quiet roads in the dead of night, noticed something deeply amiss a car. An older model, Oldsmobile 88, was found abandoned on the Route 71 bridge. This bridge, a familiar structure to locals, serves as a vital link connecting Belmar to Neptune City and it spans the dark, cold, and often choppy waters of the Shark River. It's not merely a bridge, it's a crossing over a shallow inlet that opens directly into the vast, unforgiving Atlantic Ocean. It is decidedly not a place where cars are simply left without a compelling and often urgent reason, especially in the isolating stillness of a winter night. The 911 call made by that observant and concerned driver raised immediate and significant alarm bells within the Neptune City Police Department. An officer was dispatched to the scene without delay. He found the car just as the caller had described, empty, eerily silent, with no sign of its driver. The keys, inexplicably, were still in the ignition, a detail that only deepened the mystery. A quick check of the license plate revealed the car was registered to 96-year-old Lillian Stern, the venerable matriarch of a large and sprawling family. One of her many grandchildren was 19-year-old Sarah Stern, an artistic and spirited young woman who frequently borrowed her grandmother's car. With this crucial piece of information, the pieces of a grim and unsettling puzzle began to fall rapidly into place. Sarah's father, Michael Stern, it was soon discovered, had been frantically and repeatedly trying to reach her since the previous evening, December 2nd. He was on vacation in Florida at the time. His attempts to contact Sarah, calls and texts, all met with an unnerving, impenetrable silence. His last contact with his daughter had been a seemingly normal, cheerful text exchange about the beauty of Cinderella's castle at Disney World. Now, his daughter was officially missing, and the car she'd been driving had been found deserted on a lonely bridge, a silent testament to something having gone terribly wrong. Police began their investigation by speaking to Sarah's friends and family, trying to piece together a portrait of the young woman and her recent circumstances. Neighbors reported that Sarah had dropped off some deeply personal items, precious mementos of her beloved mother, who had tragically passed away from cancer 3 years prior, at their house that very same afternoon. This detail, on its surface, painted a worrying picture, initially fueling concerns about her mental state and perhaps suggesting a desperate act. Investigators soon found themselves at the home of one of Sarah's oldest and, by all accounts, seemingly closest friends, Liam McAtasney. Their friendship was a long and storied one. They had known each other since the innocent days of first grade. Their bond forged in Sunday school at the tender age of 6. Surely, police reasoned, Liam, her confidant, could shed some much-needed light on Sarah's state of mind and possible whereabouts. In his initial interviews with investigators, Liam McAtasney, then just 19 himself, artfully painted a picture of Sarah as a deeply troubled, emotionally fragile young woman. He claimed, with an air of feigned concern, that she'd been real depressed lately. He asserted that her father Michael was crazy and that Sarah had been desperate to get away from her home situation, expressing a strong desire to move to Canada. He spoke at length about her difficult home life, particularly emphasizing the profound impact of her mother's death from cancer in 2013. This loss, Liam suggested, had hit Sarah, an only child, incredibly hard, leading to erratic behavior and emotional instability. Liam even went as far as to suggest that Sarah had threatened suicide in the past and hinted at a volatile, possibly abusive, relationship with her father, Michael, from whom she supposedly yearned to escape. To further bolster this narrative of a planned flight, he mentioned that Sarah had been diligently packing her belongings in containers, some of which, he admitted, were even stored in his own basement. This carefully constructed story lent an unfortunate, yet plausible, credence to the initial theories that Sarah might have run away or, more tragically, taken her own life. Liam also demonstrated an intimate knowledge of Sarah's financial situation. He informed police that Sarah's father had allegedly taken some inheritance money that was rightfully hers after her mother's passing. However, he also revealed a crucial detail: Sarah had a separate, secret stash of money, a lockbox filled with old, poor-quality cash that her mother had secretly hidden away for her. This, Liam explained, was Sarah's escape fund, her means to start a new life in Canada. He knew. He said that Sarah had accessed this specific money on December 2nd, the very day she disappeared. This detail, too, seemed to support the idea of a planned, voluntary departure. However, one small but significant detail didn't quite fit with the narrative of a girl carefully planning her escape: Sarah's beloved dog, Buddy. She was known by all who knew her as a deeply devoted pet owner, yet Buddy had been found left alone in his cage at her house. The house itself, investigators discovered, had been left unlocked when her car was seen pulling out of the driveway at 11:45 p.m. on December 2nd, as captured by a neighbor's CCTV, this footage being the last known recording of her car's movements. With her father still away in Florida, there would have been no one to care for the dog once she was gone. This was uncharacteristic, a small but nagging inconsistency in the otherwise coherent story Liam was weaving. Despite some notably long, contemplative silences during his police interviews that investigators found significant and somewhat suspicious, Liam McAtasney steadfastly maintained that he knew nothing of Sarah's specific plans for that fateful night. He had last seen her that afternoon. He claimed they had shared a meal of Taco Bell, played video games, and then he had left for his evening shift as a server at a local restaurant, where, he chillingly asserted, he'd had one of the best nights of my life. His account of leaving her house that afternoon seemed to align perfectly with the neighbor's security footage. Yet, he posed a curious, almost leading to question to the investigators. If she did jump off the bridge, what are the odds that she's not somewhere all the way out in the ocean by now? It was a question that hinted, perhaps, that he believed her ultimate fate was sealed in the dark waters of the Shark River, that he knew more, far more, than he was letting on. Sarah Stern, born in March of 1997, was remembered as an artistic and athletic young woman, a graduate of Neptune High School who was pursuing her passion for art and TV production at Brookdale Community College, a well-regarded local institution in Monmouth County. She, Liam, and Liam's twin brother, Seamus, had been inseparable as children, forming a tight-knit group they affectionately called the Squad. Liam had even listed Sarah under the family section on his Facebook profile, a public testament to their supposed unbreakable closeness, their bond. Like many childhood friendships, had been forged through shared experiences, both joyful and difficult, and Liam had been a constant presence and supposed pillar of support for Sarah throughout her mother's devastating cancer diagnosis, treatment, and eventual, heartbreaking death. As December 2016 wore on, bringing with it the festive cheer of Christmas that Sarah would never see, and with no further leads or signs of Sarah, the official search was eventually reluctantly called off. Her disappearance, heavily shadowed by Liam McAtasney's carefully constructed and subtly misleading narrative of a troubled girl either fleeing a difficult life or succumbing to despair, seemed destined to become another tragic, unsolved cold case, a permanent ache in the heart of her family and community. But then, in January of 2017, the case didn't just break wide open, it exploded with the force of a bombshell. The catalyst for this dramatic turn was another friend from their shared social circle, a young man named Anthony Curry, an aspiring filmmaker with a conscience that would ultimately prove stronger than any misplaced loyalty. Anthony came forward with a chilling recollection. He'd spent Thanksgiving with Liam McAtasney in November 2016, just a single week before Sarah vanished. During that holiday gathering, Liam, his childhood friend, had casually described a detailed idea for a horror film. The plot he outlined was disturbingly specific. It involved robbing a young woman, brutally killing her, and then callously disposing of her body by throwing it off a bridge. At the time, Anthony had dismissed it as nothing more than dark, fictional ideation, the kind of morbid creativity common among aspiring horror filmmakers. But when news of Sarah's disappearance later surfaced, with her car found abandoned on precisely that type of bridge over the Shark River, the horrifying coincidence, the unnerving parallels, were too stark, too specific for Anthony to ignore. He bravely and crucially contacted the police. The problem for the investigators was that Anthony's information, however compelling, was still essentially hearsay. They needed something more direct, something irrefutable, something from Liam McAtasney himself. This critical need led to the planning and execution of a meticulously orchestrated sting operation. Such operations, where civilian informants agreed to covertly record conversations with suspects, are a recognized, if sometimes controversial, investigative tactic, often employed when direct evidence is scarce but suspicion is high. On January 31st, 2017, Anthony Curry, displaying remarkable courage, agreed to meet with Liam McAtasney while wearing a secret recording device provided by the police. Liam, perhaps sensing some danger or simply being inherently cautious, even attempted to check Anthony for a wire, but was ultimately lulled into a false sense of security, believing he was confiding in a trusted friend. What unfolded during that secretly recorded conversation was a confession so detailed, so profoundly cold-blooded. It sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned homicide investigators. Liam McAtasney, believing he was in a safe space, sharing dark secrets with a sympathetic friend, unburdened himself with a horrifying lack of remorse. He recounted, with chilling detachment and a disturbing attention to detail, how he had murdered Sarah Stern, his friend since childhood. He described, with an almost procedural calmness, how it had taken Sarah a full half an hour to die as he strangled her, a gruesome, agonizing time frame that he had callously, meticulously timed on his smartphone. Crucially, he also revealed that in his haste or subsequent confusion after committing the murder, he'd misplaced that very phone at Sarah's house. He then detailed how, after finishing his work shift later that night, a shift he worked to establish an alibi, he had returned to Sarah's home. He and an accomplice, he confessed, had then dragged her lifeless body from the bushes where it had been concealed. Liam, ever conscious of surveillance, trying to avoid suspicion from a neighbor's security camera, had then driven Sarah's car out of her driveway, attempting to mimic her usual driving style. He went on to confess how he and his accomplice, communicating via walkie-talkies to coordinate their movements, had driven Sarah's body to the Route 71 bridge. He described the unexpected difficulty, the desperate struggle to lift her lifeless form over the bridge's barrier, underestimating the dead weight of a human body and the terrifying exposure on the bridge as the headlights of other vehicles occasionally approached. Finally, in a surge of panic, they had managed to heave her over the railing and into the dark, frigid waters of the Shark River. Her body intended, he hoped, to disappear without a trace, washed out to the vastness of the Atlantic. And the motive for this monstrous, almost unthinkable betrayal of a 13-year friendship: money. Pure, simple, and ultimately disappointing. Greed. Chillingly. Liam lamented to Anthony not getting as much cash as he had initially expected from Sarah's hidden lockbox. "The worst part of it is, I thought I was walking out 50 grand, 100 grand in my pocket," he was recorded saying. "She had one safe and she took money out and she only had 10 grand. I didn't even get a quarter of it." He had murdered his childhood friend, the girl who had confided in him, the girl who considered him family, for a mere few $1,000s of terrible quality old money. Money her mother had saved for her. In the course of this horrifyingly candid recorded confession, Liam also named his accomplice Preston Taylor. Preston was Liam's roommate at the time and, in another sickening twist, also a figure from Sarah's past. He had been her date to their junior prom. But when Liam had learned of Sarah's supposed windfall inheritance, these long-standing friendships, these shared histories had apparently become utterly worthless in their eyes. He and Preston, Liam revealed, had allegedly planned the robbery and murder together over a period of months. This secretly recorded confession, a direct narrative from the killer's own mouth, was the damning, irrefutable evidence that authorities desperately needed. The very next day, February 1st, 2017, both Liam McAtasney and Preston Taylor were arrested. Confronted with the overwhelming evidence, particularly the knowledge of Liam's recorded confession, Preston Taylor quickly crumbled under interrogation. He admitted his involvement, his confession corroborating the horrifying details Liam had relayed to Anthony Curry. They had planned it all for Sarah's money. He detailed how Liam had first told him about Sarah finding a bunch of money and how the idea to rob her had developed over a month or two. He described how Liam had entered Sarah's house through the back door when no one else was home, and how he later saw her body. He recounted Liam's frantic demeanor upon returning from his work shift after realizing he had misplaced his phone at Sarah's house. Preston then admitted to helping Liam dispose of Sarah's body from the bridge, describing the act of pushing her feet over the railing. They had first hidden the stolen money in the attic of the home they shared, then later buried it in a local park, spending some of it on mundane things like marijuana. The meticulous, cold-blooded plan, so carefully designed to make Sarah Stern's death look like a suicide or a voluntary disappearance, had unraveled spectacularly. If Anthony Curry, undriven by his conscience, hadn't bravely come forward with his suspicions, Liam McAtasney's calculated misdirection and manipulative lies might very well have succeeded, leaving Sarah's murder as an unsolved tragedy. Both McAtasney and Taylor, in a display of ultimate duplicity, had even attended vigils held for Sarah, feigning grief and ignorance, all the while harboring their horrific secret. In April 2017, both Liam McAtasney and Preston Taylor were formally charged with felony murder in the first degree, among a host of other serious charges, and securing a murder conviction without the victim's body presents significant, though not insurmountable, legal challenges for any prosecution. Such cases often rely heavily on compelling circumstantial evidence and, crucially, confessions. However, with Preston Taylor's detailed confession and cooperation, and Anthony Curry's damning video recording of Liam McAtasney's chillingly explicit admissions, the prosecution now possessed a powerful, almost unassailable case against them. The felony murder rule, which is applicable in the state of New Jersey, generally stipulates that if a death occurs during the commission of certain inherently dangerous felonies such as robbery, which was the underlying crime here, all individuals involved in that felony can be charged with murder, even if they didn't directly cause the death or perhaps even specifically intend for it to happen. Facing the mountain of evidence against him, Preston Taylor pleaded guilty to a slew of charges including robbery, conspiracy to commit robbery, desecrating Sarah Stern's remains, conspiring to desecrate her remains and hindering his and McAtasney's arrest. In exchange for his crucial testimony against his former friend and roommate, Liam, he received a significantly reduced sentence of 18 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after serving 15 years and 3 months. At his sentencing, Preston Taylor offered an apology to Sarah's family. Liam McAtasney, however, displayed no such remorse, either in the secret recording where he callously recounted the murder, or later, in court. His defense at trial was audacious and almost insulting. He argued that, in the video, he had simply been explaining the fictional plot of a film to Anthony Curry, that it had all been an elaborate fabrication, a creative exercise. He banked on the fact that there was little traditional physical evidence, particularly with Sarah's body having tragically been washed out to sea, never to be recovered. But crucial pieces of evidence still tied him directly to the crime. Liam's missing phone, the one he'd used to time Sarah's death, had been found by Sarah's family on her lawn the day after she was reported missing. The police discovered that its stopwatch function had indeed been activated at 4:15 on December 2nd, chillingly corroborating his recorded statement about timing how long it took Sarah to die. Investigators had also found the safe containing the stolen money buried at the park, with the bills in a poor, damaged condition that matched the description Liam had given and also matched the rest of the money still found in Sarah's deposit box at the bank. The walkie-talkies that Liam and Preston had used to coordinate their movements on the night of the murder were also recovered and submitted as evidence. As a result of this overwhelming combination of testimonial and physical evidence, the jury saw through Liam McAtasney's desperate and implausible defense. They found him guilty of first-degree murder, first-degree robbery, first-degree felony murder, second-degree conspiracy to commit robbery, second-degree disturbing or desecrating human remains, third-degree hindering apprehension, and fourth-degree tampering with physical evidence. He was sentenced to the maximum penalty life in prison without the possibility of parole. He had callously murdered a young woman he'd known since the age of 6, a friend who had trusted him implicitly, all for the sake of a few $1,000s that he ultimately found disappointing. Today, both Liam McAtasney and Preston Taylor remain incarcerated, their subsequent appeals having failed. Sarah Stern's body, despite extensive searches, has never been recovered from the depths of the Shark River, leaving her grieving family with no grave to visit, no final resting place, only the agonizing, enduring knowledge of her brutal betrayal by those she once called friends. Mary Caddy. The murder of Sarah Stern stands as a chilling testament to the terrifying depths of human greed and the horrifying ease with which some individuals can betray even the most sacred and long-standing bonds of friendship. A young life, so full of artistic promise and dreams of a future, was callously stolen by those she had considered family. Thank you for joining us on Killer Confessions. We'll see you next time, as we continue to explore the confessions that unmask the killers among us.